So today I'll be remaking this vehicle, which I put together in the dark days of 2020 when we all had a lot of time on our hands. And with that time, one of the things I wanted to do was start to learn 3D modeling in Blender. What this represents is probably a month or so of messing around with Blender and still getting to know the tools. So there's a lot of mistakes in here, the biggest of which being, of course, the lack of reference. So just modeling stuff out from a cube and not really thinking about a real life reference for any of it. So things like the axles of the wheels being different sizes, lots of really random angles, and a lot of wasted geometry, which doesn't really add any extra detail or interest to the vehicle. So today I'm going to sneak preview, build the same thing again, but with an additional 4 years of practice in Blender. So at the same time I was doing this, I was also doing a lot of Excel tutorials. I have a double life as an Excel YouTuber also, and for whatever reason I decided to build the textures for this model in Excel. So these are all gradients created in Excel. I don't know why, because I do have Photoshop, but for whatever reason for this model I used Excel to create the color palette for it. So to keep things fair, I'll be using the same Excel generated texture in the new model as well. Interesting. So I'll keep the original one in here just for scale, I suppose. Now, I don't know if I'm invoking some kind of Blender curse by not deleting the original default cube, but I like to be contrarian, so in this case I like to model everything from that original default cube. It can take longer because what I tend to do is not create new geometry, like adding new primitives. Instead I'll take an existing face, duplicate it, and then model that into a shape I want to use. So things like the headlights and whatever else, I'll model that way instead of adding a new object to the scene. Except for things like the wheels, where obviously it's easier to add a cylinder. Originally I was going to do this against the clock, but I thought better of it because I was cutting corners and creating some bad geometry like last time. So this is my reference photo that I was working off. Obviously I took some liberties with the shape and everything, but I could probably add quite a bit of the detail in here without going too overboard on the actual polygon count. So this is the first round of refining after trying to do the time challenge, which didn't really work out. So the first thing to go is this terribly designed logo, and I'm actually modeling it here from a hexagon instead. So I mean, there's always a case for actually using primitives in their right place, trying to model a whatever that symbol's called. So right here I'm adding a lot more stuff like wheel arches and other details that weren't present in the original model that just give the vehicle a bit more authenticity. So just to add some context, the original model, though having quite a high triangle count, and that's being like every face you see in a 3D model is made up of triangles, and that's how everything is rendered. The problem with that is a lot of it doesn't really contribute to anything in terms of detail. So this model would be, as you can see up here, 1200 polygons, or 1200 triangles rather. But you wouldn't know because it's still really boxy and whatever. So this one, I'm using slightly more, maybe another 200 polygons. But with that, I've added more detail in terms of rounding the corners and stuff, adding a little bit of bevel, adding more detail in general to the model. Things like unnecessary bevels here on this little plus sign. You can't even see that there is a bevel once you look at it from a distance. Same here, this outline and stuff. That could all be very, very much simplified. and that detail could be put elsewhere. Final shots then. Here is the final shot as seen in the video thumbnail. So we have this year's version, which has a lot more detail, is actually based on reference, and then the original where they're just kind of making it up, I guess, which you can tell, and I guess that's all part of the learning process. You can see here where I actually looked at a photo of a real ambulance. You know, everything down to the details like the wing mirrors, the lights themselves, things like the grille, all the small details that all add to creating a convincing vehicle. I mean, okay, it's not realistic, but it has all the elements that sort of make it, you know, an iconic, recognizable vehicle. Whereas this being purely from the imagination, without any kind of reference, it's kind of lacking that. And tellingly is missing things that should be obvious, like, I don't know, wing mirrors and wheel arches and proportions, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is a 4-year journey from one of my first sort of modeling things in Blender to something made this week, I guess. So yeah, I'll put the new model on Sketchfab, and then maybe I'll do a video soon about actually finishing the cats animation, and maybe I'll actually release the actual animation as well. So see you next time.